25 लोग आ चुके हैं सर यूट्यूब पे।
ओके, क्या बात है सर।
25 वेटिंग।
Well, I'm starting now. Good afternoon, everyone. I think some attendees are coming. Let them come.
I think Dr. Sirohi will wait for 5 minutes so that the attendees can, more can come in.
Yes, sir.
So it's showing 127 to me here.
No, attendees are 120, sir.
Now it's gone up. It's showing
126, 120, up 27.
It includes 7 of us, sir.
Yes, yes. So attendees
35
are,
on YouTube.
yeah, and attendees are 135 right now.
Yes, sir. It's going up 136.
143 showing from here.
Plus 35 on YouTube.
तो 200 हो जाता है तो शुरू कर लेते हैं या 150 पे शुरू करो।
Sir, let's wait for 5 minutes and then.
ठीक है।
Let's wait for 5 minutes. Yes.
Yes, yes.
हाँ, आप शुरू पर छूटना नहीं चाहिए, तो प्रॉब्लम हुआ, बाद में नहीं समझ में।
सर कुछ मैसेज आ रहा है, स्टार्ट कर दीजिए प्लीज।
Okay.
आप शुरू कर दो।
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Naveen Sirohi from Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, a think tank under Ministry of Corporate Affairs. It's a privilege that this is the first series of webinar is now taking shape on impact of COVID-19 on valuations. We have a very great panel with us, and I would like to invite and request invite the panelists. We have with us Rajiv Singh ji. He's an authority on the subject of valuation, chartered accountant, registered valuer. He's a board member, and he has done a lot of transactions at national and international level. And one connect with IICA is that sir is also an adjunct faculty with us, and he is the course director of IVCP, that is IICA Valuation Certificate Program, which is a unique, comprehensive 11-month program. We'll discuss it later on because that's not the agenda for the day. We welcome you, Rajiv sir.
Thank you.
We have with us Mr. Oja, Mr. Rakesh Oja. Mr. Oja is an advocate of repute, a commercial and dispute lawyer with above 25 years of experience. He is a senior partner at Asia Law Offices, which is a full-service law firm. He specializes in contractual structuring and dispute advisory in Indian and international space. Within dispute advisory, he advises extensively on quantification and assessment of economic damages in international commercial arbitrations. We welcome you, Rakesh Ojaji, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sirohi. Thank you.
We have with us Dr. Lal, Dr. Sushil Kumar Lal is a senior partner of a peer-reviewed level 1 chartered accountant firm, chartered accountant, science graduate, and he holds a PhD degree in IFRS Conversed. He is the chairman of International Business Valuers Association, New Delhi, and is a member of a lot of important committees. His areas of expertise include banking, NBFC, corporate governance, corporate and finance strategy, international financial reporting standards, Indian accounting standards, Nepal financial reporting standards, taxation, both direct and indirect, accounting, auditing, and consultancy. We welcome you, Dr. Lal.
Thank you.
We have with us Amit Singh. He is a chartered accountant and a registered valuer. He has over 13 years of exposure and hands-on experience in dealing with nitty-gritty of valuation of businesses, equity for private ventures, as well as for public enterprises. For purposes like transactions, sale or purchase, compliances, FEMA, transfer pricing, requirements of RBI, valuation of financial instruments, derivatives like SOPs, ESOPs, preference shares, debentures, valuation of real properties and intangible assets. His core area of expertise include business valuations, mergers, demergers, restructuring, due diligence, and related services. So we welcome you, Amit.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Navinji.
We also have with us Shweta Singh. She has an extensive experience in the area of valuation for financial reporting purposes, including intangibles, customer contracts, customer relations, intellectual property rights, brands, etc. Purchase price allocation and impairment testing, FEMA, mergers, acquisitions, and ESOPs, dissenting shareholder actions, economic damages, family settlement, Income Tax Act, Companies Act, arbitration, valuation of startups in association with IIT Roorkee and for other purposes. She has performed valuations for companies in India and outside, including Singapore, Nepal, Dubai, etc. She frequently participates in arbitration proceedings leading to valuation. We welcome you, Shweta.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining.
And we also have with us Pawan Lohia ji, who is also a team member and will be with us, help us. So with this, I welcome all the panelists and all the attendees. We have 186 attendees on this webinar right now from different places of this country and some from other countries as well. And a lot of you are watching it on the YouTube thing. So we welcome you. Just a little bit about Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs. It's a think tank created by Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and the idea is to basically work on the contemporary challenges which the business community is facing. So we have done a lot of work in the area of insolvency, CSR, corporate governance, and now we have started contributing something in the area of valuation. And this is, besides the course, this is the first of the series of webinars on valuation. Now let's start the day. Let's start the process. So to begin with, I would like to request Rajiv ji, Rajiv Singh ji. My question to you would be: how different is the current economic situation, and how it is going to affect the valuations as of March 31, 2020?
Okay, first of all, I would like to Thank you, Dr. Sirohi, for organizing this seminar. And I would also like to thank the learned audiences who are hooked to this program. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of past president of Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nepal, friend from Bangladesh and Australia. This program, we are going to have a very interactive session and organize in a way that your questions, whatever you have in your mind, will be taken care of in a sequence. So you have to wait for some time. If we are not in a position to answer your questions during this process, we have a half an hour session at the end where you can only raise questions and we'll answer those questions. If at all those questions can't be answered, we still will respond over mail, or if need be, there'll be a follow-up seminar. Let me first tell you that why we have organized this program, because we are facing a unprecedented situation due to COVID-19. And in this, how the principles and concepts of application of valuation will get affected. Entire country will be following a uniform approach because there is a serious impact on financial system, and therefore there is a need for authoritative and very acceptable global practice which needs to be communicated both to the user as well as to those who are performing valuation. So that is the idea we have kept. This is a platform to encourage discussion or all new ideas and concepts so that we can come together. Now, we will take a few minutes to discuss the concept of economic issue first, because without understanding, we will not understand the impact of COVID-19 on fair market value measurement, because that is linked with that. So that is the reason why we are trying to see that you first understand the economic part of that. Yes, issues are so large that even 2 hours of the whole seminar will not be sufficient to address all of them. But I have just highlighted 4 or 5 items which will be very important for a valuer and an end user of a valuer to understand the impact and take a decision. So we will see that if we invest first 5 to 10 minutes in understanding or recollecting, those friends who are already in valuation profession, most of you would be aware about that, we'll be in a better position to address your questions, and the questions will flow from that. So let's first understand that the question was, how is this economic position as? Today's current economic position, we call it as the economic quarantine. We are in an economic quarantine. See, what is the meaning of that? We have halted the economy. There is a car on the road, we have stopped it. It is not moving because we do not want to move it. So this is not something I've seen in the market. People are comparing with Great Depression, with Great Recession of 2008, Great Depression of 1930s. There are no parallel. Those crises where basically arose, those crises you can link with the demand side of the issue. But this time it is because the supply side of the issue. So when you talk about the supply side of the economy, which effectively means the economy was doing very well, but I'm calling it as economic quarantine, because when we analyze a projection, when we think about future, we will keep in this mind that how it is going to get over and whether there is any scope or available or not. So let's first understand that these differences of understanding of what has happened in the past two critical events of 2009 and 1930 will help us a lot in terms of understanding financial projections, in terms of understanding the fair value measurement. Having said that, one most important point I would like to clarify at this stage is that this is unprecedented in the world. It has never happened in the history of the world that the whole world is just waiting. Everything is stopped. We are not moving. So this situation is completely different. There is no parallel to that. We have to keep this in mind before we move forward and try to understand the holistic view of that. Yes, there are some forecast also has come up. We'll just see slides. I would not take your time because I know how precious that is about giving data and thus flow. Only relevant part which will help us in setting the whole discussion. Important point is to understand this is supply driven. This is not demand driven, but this supply driven problem would result into a demand situation. So the address of this would not be like how it has happened in case of Great Depression, but it will happen like how it has happened in case of Great Recession, like by going fiscal stimulus, monetary policy support. Let me tell you, I sit on a bank board. Whatever possible thing, few of them I'll discuss with you, whatever possible thing is there in the slips of Reserve Bank of India or any regulator on the globe, they have done it. Now, how to move forward this economy all depends upon which way we are going to create a demand for the people. So this is the first important part we should understand, that this is a supply driven, which can lead to a demand problem. If it is not addressed properly, there could be a structural damage to the economy. So watch it carefully. It is not uniform. This problem is not uniform. This is sectoral, this is geographical, this is regional, this is not connected in a sense that one can get hit in a very severe hit, the other would be literally flourishing. So you will see winners, you will see losers, and in that line, you have to analyze the finances. The business models will be dismantled, the financial theory are getting cracked, and the results you will see will be a disaster in the coming days in some sectors, and the true growth stories in the some other sectors. The second point at this stage I would like to highlight that we are now talking that with this supply driven problem is going to demand driven problem. Yes, it will possible if it lengthens. And then the third would be to understand the recession. There are three types of recession. One is the real recession, another is the policy driven recession, and the third is a financial crisis recession. 2008 was a financial crisis recession. COVID-19 impact is a real recession, which means there is a shock of supply and demand. Started with supply shock, we halted the economy, doing very little, and then suddenly turns into the complete disruption across the globe. So this has created a demand problem. The solution would come through the demand side. If there will be a demand, then you can see the economy moving on that part. So first be clear that this, why I'm giving these points, because all you need to understand when we go for analysis of economy, these are the basic macro view. You have to have it as a valuer. Otherwise, you will not understand the theory and you'll make an error in completion part. The third thing I would like to discuss about is because we have halted it. So the next question would come up when it will get clear. Is there any scope of recovery? What is the depth of disruption? What is the time it is going to take to recover? So there are four possible theories there. And with that, the financial projections will come up. I'm going to give you on a very layman's sense. Let me admit, I'm not a trained economist, but I understand economics by learning bottom up. I have no idea about the top-down understanding, which most of economists will have. So we have a V-shaped recovery, we have a U-shaped recovery, we have a L-shaped recovery, and we have a W-shaped recovery. So which are the recovery which are going to possible? Why I'm talking? Because if you do not understand this, you will not understand the cash flow, the impact, and the survival of the companies, their performances, because we have halted because of the economic of a pandemic. What is the history about that? Also, we're going to see. So V-shape is like a sudden fall and then of course recovery within a quick point of time. You can see the shape of V, fall, recovery. This is a classical real economy shock where you see fall and coming up. Most optimistic situation, am I right? In a COVID impact, this is the most optimistic, but is that plausible? I would say answer is yes. You will ask me a question, what is your basis? I'll answer it later. So just first understand, V-shape is something what will be best thing available to this planet. Now come to after V-shape, we have another shape which is called U-shape, which is a sibling of V, but is the ugly sibling of V-shape. Means sudden fall, but delayed recovery. More and more time it will take to recover, and then sudden up. So you understand, when you go for a financial projections, all these principles will apply. The way you make analysis, it's going to go there, and then we'll come back as a valuer. We'll understand that our role. Are you going to do a forecasting of GDP? Is that the role of a valuer? The answer is no. Are you going to say what is the shape it is going to say? The answer is no. But do you understand it? Yes. We need to understand for our application part, and I'll discuss how. So after U shape, there is a L shape. This is the ugliest of the siblings of V and U shape. You see, sudden fall and no chance of recovery. L, finish. Structural damage to the economy. You understand? So is this a structural damage? It is not going to impact all across in the same way. Otherwise, the whole world will be finished. So my only question to all those doomsayers are, they are saying that everything will finish. That means we all will finish. If it is L-shaped, nobody will survive because you are finished for all. L-shaped, no recovery. So this is even pessimistic who will not think about this kind of a situation. I'll tell you the incidents because there are thousands of types of viruses on this planet and they have been coming. They will keep on coming. This is not the first. This will not be the last. So we have to prepare. We have to address it properly. Now I have heard of late, there is another shape which people are saying and predicting also, and very prominent people. Now what is the application of mind of that? W shape. Now what is this W shape? Sudden fall, quick recovery, again fall, and then recovery. You feel this guy is a genius. Yes, he's genius because he doesn't want the money to come in India. Why? You understand this? It's a basic mathematics, my dear friend. Does not require a special skill set. We know that it is a halted economy, so it is a fall. Even if a small growth happens, so there will be some, you will see some steep going on. And then they are predicting that there will be a reverse. That means the coronavirus will come again and it will down you. You will be halting and then go up. Are you a doctor? Do you have the methodology? Do you have to come a researcher or some soothsayer or some global box based on this you are predicting? This is called prescription. A valuer should avoid about the prescription. We only have to do a description. I'll come back onto that part. So we have a W shape, we have a L shape, we have a V shape, we have a U shape. I hope you are clear with these terms. I'll be using when I go back that when projection and D shape will discuss, I'll be using these things. So I thought in the start or the beginning of my presentation, I should show you. See, I'll show you where in India we stand, how much opportunity we have got, and then which sector of the economy is going to go first, how it will go, which businesses are going to be dismantled, and what are the process. Through this, you'll be able to learn. Now, the last point, before we go back for a small presentation through Amit, and that data, thereafter I'll go for the next question, is that, is there any empirical evidence? I repeat, is there any empirical evidence that in the last 100 years, say 1980 flu, say your SARS, say your 1958 H2N2, what shape it took? What shape it took in recovery? Let me tell you, people are deliberately not saying about this. It was a V shape. It was no other shape. So history is supporting us that it was a V shape. Yes, this is a dangerous virus as compared to all past, but it is equivalent, 90-95% similarity. But all in the past were a V-shape. So empirical evidence is V-shape. Now thought process about other opportunities we'll discuss separately. The last point before we go for a quick thing, whether the valuation principles, methods which we have got because of this COVID-19 is going to get dismantled, or we have to look for something else. Right now, I'll not give a comment on that, but one point I'll tell you, because of this COVID, the whole principle of capital asset pricing model, CAPM, which is based on a risk can be diversified, diversifiable risk and non-diversifiable risk, or risk has a two component. Now you tell me, with the impact of COVID-19, you go anywhere in the world, you invest in any types of asset, all are falling together. Whether it is a gold, whether it's a real estate, whether it's a stock, whether it's a commodity, whether US, Paris, London, wherever you go, everything is falling. So the principle of this, that I'll get diversified, yes, not in this planet. If you have an investment on Mars, you are diversified. So we'll examine that with this, how my principles of valuations are going to help, and whether those principles are still valid. Do they require some changes? Will come. Amit, can you show
Yeah, sure,
the
sure.
slide
Give me a
just
minute.
for 2 points? There are initial projections which have come up. I want to share you. Then we'll go for the next question. Based on this, we'll take the valuation issues also. Amit,
Just give me a
can you
minute. Yeah,
show
give me a
that
minute. Give me a minute.
slide? Yes, Lakshmanji, I'll be little bit some questions. If I make it interactive, this is not, see this IACF platform, believe me, it's not for anything else, but for open mind. Think about new, create India as a great opportunity, great center for valuation services to the world. I'm thinking on those lines. We have to create infrastructure. We have to understand and how things are going to shape in future. I think based on that, I just want to show you two important things in this slide. The first one, rest each one will take later on. I will share with you. The first thing that you can find out, FPIs pulled out $18.5 billion, huge amount, roughly $19 billion from debt and equity market between mid-Feb and March end. Now, is that normal? Is that something orderly? Is that something disorderly? We'll examine later on. So keep that in your mind, that this is what has happened, a bloodbath on the capital market. We'll see this later on also. The next one, Amit, the rest are the one which we understand that how India is going to get affected, a similar platform. India is expected to save around 67 billion US dollar because of the lower oil prices. Can I believe that? Have a look at this figure. So a lot of people are thinking that this government is finished, from where the money will come, how it will happen, and that forecast is only around $26 till FY21. Assuming that this is the saving, if it is more than that, the saving will be much larger. If it is lower than that, the saving will be much larger. And imagine the kind of money it will help. Similarly, there will be a lot of foreign currency, etc. Downfall, and but at the same time, there will be a expected heavy depreciation of rupee, good for the exporters and other part of the game. So we'll come back later on. I hope Dr. Sirohi somehow it address your question that what is the economic situation we are in and how it is going to affect your valuation. One by one, we'll take up.
Yes, Rajiv ji, it was a good overview of the economic conditions. Now coming to the market, I would request you sharing your thoughts on how unhinged stock markets have been over COVID-19.
Yes, I'm not going to discuss a lot of things which has happened. I think already I've given one data because my objective is today's 2 hours to make sure you understand where the methods, approaches, procedures, processes, how they are going to change what are those changes and how those changes will be accounted for when you do a valuation. What are the things auditors should look for? Believe me, you're not only signing financial statement, you're signing financial statement for the country. Make sure that you understand that point where I'm talking about. You're signing financial statement for the country, because if you don't do the good job, in a sense that without understanding, just mechanically if you apply principle, there will be serious damage, and the damage can result in a structural damage. The only way we have to avoid is that we should not convert the supply problem, demand problem government is addressing. If it results in a financial problem, financial crisis, we are finished. In fact, anybody can be finished. So make sure we are a part and parcel of that, and therefore it is our job to understand this. And we have, that is how loaded panel with the various type of expertise, so that we can answer that. Now, if you come back to the capital market side, 2-3 things I'd like to highlight. Also, I'd like to help you with a basic understanding that how do we understand the long-term growth rate in this devastated market. I'll come back to that. That's very important. So just a statistical thing, 18 trillion US dollar. Imagine 18 trillion US dollar. This is the total amount of market cap which has been wiped out from the world market cap during last 1 month in the month of March. Can you believe that? So now it is just $70 trillion kind of equity market cap of the world. So this bloodbath happened in the normal market condition. We'll examine that. Is that the normal behavior? Is the way the investor think about is something critical? So it was a chaotic market. Was it orderly or it was a disorderly? The figure talk about that. A market euphoria, which was there, I'm using the word euphoria, was there in Jan and Feb, translated into market capitulation in March. So all good day came into down day without any, taking time. It was a sudden, blunt hit on your head even before you think of. Was that a normal behavior? We'll examine, because that's what you have to know. Roughly 40% of that, your uncertainty, I'm using the word liquidation, liquidity. This is what, because of the uncertain potential outcome of COVID infection, 40 average 40% index, Nifty 50, Nifty small cap, mid cap, whatever you take, average 40% wiped out. If you go sectorally, the impact is different. I'm not going into more detail. Like I have a classification called, I call it as a RAB. RAB is robbed by 45% from Feb 7 to 31st March 2020. What is RAB? Real estate, auto, and bank. You understand? This RAB is robbed by the market by 45%. It's a bloodbath on those stocks. But then you have a FIP, that you have a FMCG stock, IT stock, and pharma stock. They were only 27% down. Why? You understand the reason for this? So you have to go for see the sectoral impact. They will remain. Some will be the winner, some will be the loser. We'll have to examine in great detail. So what I have done in this, I will give you 2 important ideas about this. The first point is to understand COVID infection. It results in huge uncertainty of potential outcome. That results in a huge volatility, and that results in a serious fall of price. Is that orderly? Is that orderly? We'll examine. So therefore, I have picked up 2 numbers. Amit, can you show what is called the fear index of the market? That is called VIX.
Sure.
That is a volatility index. For a layman says it is a fear index. What is the fear index data talking about? Amit will show this for our audience so that they are also aware about that. First one from USA, this fear index gives you the thinking about the market in the next 30 days. First is from CBOE VIX, or another is India VIX. Can you see that the historical peak was something 80 in November 2008. Average of CBOE is around 13 to 14. In March it was 53. Historical average is 1920. So If you compare with edge compared to historical average, it is roughly 2.5 times more than that. This is the volatility index of CBOE. But what about in India? You see, in India, it was 71. Average is between 11 to 15, normal range 14, 19. And then on March 24, examine, on March 2020, you can
Rajiv ji, we are losing you in between.
Is that again asking is that market examples, we can have more of that. So is there some Jagdish Kumar, Mr. Jagdish Kumar Pillai? Is the voice okay? Am I audible, Dr. Shroy?
That's better now. It's better now.
Better.
So I think, Rajiv sir, can you repeat the last 5 minutes, 2-3 minutes, I believe, when you started the Indian fear index India? I think if you repeat that, that will be good.
See, I'm referring to fear index, which is nothing but VIX, that is volatility index, working consideration when you do evaluation. Right. I think it's a good suggestion if we can switch off the voice of other people. I think probably would be some problem to.
We should switch off the video as well who are not speaking.
Okay, let me check because.
Rajiv ji, please continue.
Okay, fine. So is this voice has improved little bit?
Yes, it is. I think we have switched off few videos now. Please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So I just repeat these volatility index numbers are before you. We've just seen in India it went up to 80 plus on March 24. I'm pointing out this specific date because 2 days I think it was a lockdown announced, so market was just looking for cover. There was no hiding place available in the market, and that's how this bloodbath, you can see it was a complete chaotic kind of a environment where high volatility index is negatively correlated with the share price. High volatility index is negatively correlated with the share price. So if the index goes up, there will be a lower price, a market price or a stock indices price will fall if the index goes up. So this, and why sudden rise? It is that normal? Normal is the range of India 15 to 20. This is not normal. So we will examine when you go and understand the meaning of orderly price, and that is what our job is to understand when we decide the fair value thing. So one more thing I want to take. I hope the voice is clear because I'm just using, if you allow me, a small formula. I'm not talking about here. Those who are interested, we can discuss or maybe a seminar. They close. There's Dr. Shiroi.
Yes, sir.
Is the voice still breaking?
No, voice is better now. You can continue, sir. Dr. Lal, can you switch off your video, please, sir? May I request you?
Okay.
Okay. Amit, can you go to the next slide, because this is what is a very interesting slide. Now I'm going to discuss about a very good indicator of market, what is called is a trailing P multiple. What is a trailing P multiple? where any multiple is a denominator is always price, and numerator is always price, and denominator is always some financial number or some other number. So here the price is of course market price, and earning is trailing, means historical. So I'm talking here LTM, last 12-month trailing P multiple. If you can see and see the fall from December end to March for S&P, it has fallen from 22 something to 17. And you can see for Sensex, from Feb it was hovering around 24, showing sort of euphoria. June was highest around 29, 30, equivalent to 2008-9, and it has fallen to somewhere 16 to 18. It's not 8, I'm sorry. Now, how can I decipher? How can I get a growth number from that? Can you see on the screen there is a small formula? This is the only formula I'm using, so excuse me those who dislike formulas. But this is a very small basic valuation formula expanded to capture this very interesting part. P multiple formula. P0 is showing today's price, E0 is today's earning per share, and that is P0 is the market price per share. And you can see in the right hand side in your numerator it is 1 plus Z1. I hope if the voice is good, that means you'll enjoy this interpretation. And I'm trying to find out what was the growth expectation of the market overall. Say if I can understand from Sensex. And you can see in the denominator it is a risk-free rate plus exchange rate premium. It should be or market risk premium, and then you have a minus Z2 plus indicates that the growth rate after year number 2 and thereafter. G1 represents the growth rate of first year from today. That means we are talking about 2021. Now let's come. We have on the left hand side we have the data. Suppose if I want to test India, we have around March available data, say 16 or 18. The right hand side, how many variables are there? G1 is the first variable. That is means what it will be my growth for the year number 1. Then we have a risk-free rate, another variable. Then we have a premium. I think there is some time here. It should be exchange premium. So, or market risk premium. That is another variable. And then next is the growth rate, G2 and forward. That is a long-term growth rate, I'm assuming. When we calculate this from the market data, that is your observable input, we call this as the implied growth rate. So my focus is to find out, I'm going to use this in my terminal value, in my various other parameters to test or maybe use this input. So this is a one demonstration. I just said valuation now is very analytical or very, kind of process, because this is a very
Rajiv, the voice is lost again.
Or even without that, I can explain. Say, if you see out of 4 variables, what is known to us, what is observable to us, what is observable to us is the risk. All these are what is one, that is what is going to be the growth equity risk premium and the growth rate. Suppose if I also include one input, that becomes E1. So therefore, my will convert into 2 observable and 2 unobservable. Right? I repeat, when I combine together E0 with 1 plus Z1, so this becomes from trailing for multiple to a forward multiple, and therefore, because the price must have taken into consideration the impact of what is going to happen in 2001. So therefore, we have now got only two unobservable. Equity risk premium can be estimated. Risk-free rate is known. Can we then get the growth rate? Yes or no? Tell me, the audience. This will be the growth rate of the Sensex. Please let me tell you, this formula is specifically designed for index because the beta of the index is 1. Otherwise, this formula requires more modification. This formula would need more modification because without that, we can't work out. So I said through this market input, we can get to know the long-term growth rate which was prevailing on that particular date. We can try a number of combination and then see which combination is plausible. This is the example we can demonstrate in the next when we meet together, but it is a possibility. So Dr. Sirohi, I hope these two things, when we go and discuss later on, next question, this platform will help us to understand that the VIX numbers and the P numbers, what exactly they were showing, a sudden drop one and a sudden rise of another. What was the indication? Was that normal, or there was something, we call it technically disorderly? So can you go back to the next question, Doctor?
Yes. Now coming to valuation. Now before I go to next questions, there have been some, I think, voice issues. We are getting a lot of comments. So I request most of the panelists to switch off the video unless we are not active, and maybe switch on the audio also in between so that background noise, any background noise doesn't hamper the listeners' receptivity. Now coming to valuation, sir, Rajiv, sir, coming to valuation, what would be the impact of COVID-19 on valuation approaches, methods and procedures, one, and how would you reconcile more valuation analysis than usually is done with the prevailing lowballing?
Dr. Sirohi, will it help if I switch off the video of mine video? Will it help?
You can, sir. I think it will be helpful, sir. You can, if you can switch off.
Okay. So when it is fine, then you can tell me. Okay, fine. You tell me how it looks like now.
No, it's fine. Your name is coming, sir, and now you can. Should I repeat the question, sir?
Yeah. Please do that.
So now coming to the valuation, sir, you covered the market part. So now, what do you think would be the impact of COVID-19 on valuation approaches, methods, and procedures? And how would you reconcile more valuation analysis than usually is done with the prevalent lowballing?
Okay. So there are two elements in this. I'll answer combined together. First question is that will there be an impact of COVID-19 on valuation approaches, method, and procedures? I think that is the reason why before taking up this type of questions, I started with this a little bit of an introduction of economic issues and understanding about COVID, that how it is impacting the economy. I think if that we are clear, then we'll know that is going to affect our valuation. There is no doubt onto that. As far as approaches are concerned, there are only three approaches are available: income, market, and cost or asset. So those right now would remain same. There are no fourth approach available. Of course, there are some authoritative textbooks now saying like adjusted net asset method. They are not counting as a part of any three approaches. Rather, they are saying it's a hybrid. So they are counting is as a separate methodology. I fully agree with that. But anyway, still there are a lot of people count it as a part of cost or asset approach. But if you ask me about the methods and procedures, I think there will be a huge differences and changes. Some methods may not be usable at all. Some methods require a significant adjustment, and then there will be certain other looking onto the evaluation or adjustments of application of concepts and methods. And also you need to understand that you need to revisit the theory based on which you have been working, because you have been mechanical trained for long. Now the time is to look into theory, then to understand the game. So what I would see changes. I give one example, like earning capitalization method. Tell me, if at all you want to decide use the discounted cash flow method, income approach, one method is the earning capitalization method. Under COVID-19, I doubt any valuer, in rarest of the rare case, it may be useful. Otherwise, I doubt any valuer will be comfortable with this method per se. So you have to, decide very based on case and fact, and changes and recalibration of the models and the method. That will be very important. What changes in procedures and processes I am looking for? There will be a more rigorous work approach in terms of how you approach your work. Rigor will be more well thought out or reasoned. Your analysis would be needed, and more defendable valuation would be required. Meaning, so you require more documentation, more valuation analysis than you do in usual case. And to answer your second question, lowballing is happening because of the COVID-19. I hope my valuation friends also will not go into that infected mode and start charging lower prices. I understand the clients are under the strain, so this will be a kind of a initial phenomenon. Maybe for a few months or year it will continue. Ultimately, then people will fall back to the quality. I see this happening a lot. The one serious thing I see will have an impact on your the IBS uses the word investigation, and within that there are 4 compartments. Dr. Sirohi, this is similar to your name of institution, IICA. The first I is the inspection. I don't know how the inspection is going to happen. Will that be a physical inspection? Will that be electronic inspection? This procedure now is going to change. There will be geotagging, there will be use of artificial intelligence, there will be so many things happening. And there could be limitation also, valuers will be writing, especially under COVID. Then you have inquiry. I hope this process of inquiry, rather than going physically, you will be now doing electronically. And everything will be recorded. So be careful what you record and what you take a call onto this. Even your phone calls, etc., will be recorded. Then you have a computation analysis. I don't think on computation part there will be changes. Of course, analysis will be slightly bit different. The one important thing I just said earlier also, the valuer should restrict to description. They should not go for prescription. One example would be, you can say there is a lot of government and RBI stimulus, and then tomorrow I say that this will lead to kind of a inflation. You are prescribing. This is your prescription. It's not a description. So you've gone more than what is supposed to be. This is one. The next 2 important thing I would like to highlight before this part I close the answer is that investor, what is required to be focused on the how investor behave in a market rather than how they should behave. I repeat again, this is a very important fundamental principle now is there. Earlier there was no thought on this. Now I would like to see, or I would attract attention of all my fellow friends to focus on this. Our job would be to see how investor behavior would be in the market. I repeat, not on how they should behave. How they should behave in economics is a normative theory, right? Whereas capital asset pricing model is a positive theory where we examine how investor should behave. No, how investor do behave is all difference and makes a huge difference in terms of your analysis. So therefore, the way investor will behave will be a critical input when you do evaluation, and then we'll examine whether this bloodbath was normal or not. That is the behavior of investor. We cannot go and say this way the investor should have behaved. We have to see how they behave, how they have behaved. That is how is a positive theory. We are not looking at the normative theory. Modern portfolio theory, I repeat, was a normative theory. Capital asset pricing model is a positive theory. And then use of behavioral finance skill, very important, because this gives you insight about how investors behave in the market. I will address one such, what is called a projection or forecast bias in today's analysis. but later on. I hope Dr. Sirohi, this addressed the question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Rajiv Singh. Now coming to fair value measurement. The objective of fair value measurement is to determine price that would be received when selling an asset or transferring liability in an orderly transaction. Are therefore the price of disorderly transactions representative of fair value? How can you decide that a transaction is not orderly?
I think, Dr. Sirohi, this is a very pertinent question. I think just to cover this kind of a situation, we have started with understanding a little bit about economics and then market, because ultimately all these are the field a valuer has to run to find the answer of their questions. So to answer that question, that whether the price discovered out of the disorderly transaction is a representative of fair value or not, the answer is no. Exit price is the result of orderly transaction. I think this part is missed most of the time, and I will answer it in more detail in the later question. I'm just building up. I repeat, when we discuss, if you can recall in earlier question, I was referring every time and trying to see how investor behaved during the month of March, and that will determine whether that behavior was orderly or not before taking any call. I am not going to answer question because how Rajiv Singh will think. I will only answer based on what this authoritative document is saying, and based on that we'll try to. I'm only just trying to connect. So remember, the concept of orderly transaction is intended to distinguish fair market value measurement from the price in a distress sale or forced liquidation. So watch these two terms separately. What is the meaning of this is that if it is proven, I repeat, if it is proven or can be proven, or there is evidence, supportable evidence, I repeat, where a valuer or a management can prove that a particular transaction is distressed or forced, not the way investor should have behaved, but the way investor has behaved, because we have to have a positive theory, we will decide whether the transaction is orderly or not. Because if it is proven that it was a liquidation, if it is proven that it was distress, then those prices will not be the price relevant for the purpose of fair value measurement. So more precisely, the orderly transaction exposure to the market allow for, I repeat, normal market activities to take place and not the forced or distress. I repeat the word normal market activity. Can you call a VIX rising to 80 plus something is a normal market activity? See the history. Since 1999, VIX is available for a very large period. US has got a long history. You can see how VIX we have, and it's wonderful indication of market behavior. So we'll examine. Remember also that there has to be a competitive tension when you have only sellers, when you have a circuit breaker, when we have only no buyer. In that scenario, will you say that there is a competitive tension? We'll examine. The buyer and seller should be willing. They should not be, and they should not be something nervous seller. They should not be selling in a panic mode. They should not be selling based on margin call requirement because they were forced to sell. They will not be going to out of fear from a risky asset to safe haven asset like investing.
So Rajiv sir, I have a question here. Can I say that most of the prices prevailing in the market close to 31st March were not orderly transactions price?
I think Amit, well, very good question. I'll come back to that. In all cases, I will not say yes, but you have to wait for 2 more questions because it's all sequential. Can I go on that sequence rather than answering right? Sure. I take your question.
No, we can go ahead with the sequence we have already following.
If I introduce two more things, then I'll be shown you any definition of fair market value, fair value, because definition will not give you the idea. You have to read the whole standard and then see the application. You'll get the solution for that. So, Dr. Sirohi, can you ask me next question so that I can address the Amit's issues? Hello.
Yeah, sir. Yes, sir. So the next question is, can transactions in an inactive market affect fair value?
Yeah, that's again is a very important question. Let me remind the viewers and my professional colleague or along with my co-panelist that there are three types of market which are discussed in IFRS 13 or Ind AS 113. One is your principal market, we'll call it a PM. Then you have a most advantageous market, and it will be a 4 types of market. So the standard further takes you on and say that where do you find this price? You go to a principal market. If you don't get a principal market, go to most advantageous market and then check whether this market is active or not. If market is active, then this price is unadjusted and take it. So active is used in that sense. What do we mean by this active market? It is something which you can discuss with the frequency. That means how many times the transactions are happening and the volume, the extent of transactions. Things will decide whether the market is active or not. Your question was that can a transaction in inactive market affect fair value? The answer is yes. Principally, active market transactions are the most representative of fair value. And having said that, even though the market is inactive, and if it is a principal or most advantageous market, that input can be used in fair value, that would require an adjustment because that cannot be directly used or what we call as a quoted price. So we can conclude for this, while determining whether the market is active or inactive, focus should be on trading activities and frequency of the individual asset, not of the market where it is traded. So if you are trading on say NSE, or if your share is X, you should focus in X frequency, you should focus in X volume, not on the NSE volume, NSE frequency. That means a stock can be inactive, not the market. That's how the whole principle is, that you look for the assets.
Okay,
next
great.
question, Dr. Sirohi.
So now comes the most important and pointed question to you. Is it mandatory to consider only the quoted price of an asset for fair value measurement always? While answering, may I also request you to elaborate the combined application of orderly transactions and active market concepts in the determination of fair value?
So I think, Amit, is that your question covered here, or do you want some more?
Yeah, yes. This part of the question will cover my question also.
Okay, so I again repeat and simplify the question. The meaning of this question is that because auditors and others has for long since this IFRS or Ind AS came in, and long back in SFAS 157 of USA, they're so used to taking a level 1 data or in the hierarchy as a quoted price, if a quoted price is there and taking as a fair value, that they have never examined a combined application, or I would say the occasion was not to examine, but now where they have to examine collectively of orderly transactions concept and active market concept while we are determining fair value. So if the question is that is it mandatory to consider only quoted price, only, I repeat the word, only quoted price or unadjusted price, what we call it technically, always if it is available, the answer would be no. Why? Because two important things you have to be careful. what I'm saying, if you combine these two concepts, so that means fair value measurement requires two important things. There should be a consideration of significant decline in the market activity, what we call as an inactive market. And there should also be a test of whether the quoted price are associated with a transactions that are not orderly. That means they are disorderly. I just said, how do we decide something is disorderly? It should not be forced, which is different from should be distress. So was that a situation of forced? Was that a situation of distress? We need to examine it, and then only we can take a call that whether this price is something is acceptable or not. Considering, I repeat, considering the application of these two principles in a COVID-19 situation, it's quite likely, I repeat, it is quite likely in number of cases of observable input. That means even though they are available in the active market, they may not be representative of what I call it as a orderly transaction. That means they may be indication of distrust or maybe a forced sale situation. If that be the case, in that case, you cannot, I repeat, you cannot use observable inputs directly. It should rather better to use in a combination of methods. So there is a backing of that part also. So, one point I would like to clarify for everybody that just because there is a significant decrease in activity on its own, it cannot become a disorderly transaction in that market. So you have to do a more valuation analysis. The way I was referring numbers, detail, market action, volumes, those would be the indicator to support that this market was disorderly. So what you have to see, what are those signals? I'll give you and then give you a sequence and then conclude the question. Significant decrease in volume or your frequency. Indices were highly correlated with, say, price of a share, non-correlated. Suppose share X is, say, 0.70 correlation with index. Now this correlation has gone in negative and some other territory. This is also indication. Third and most important, implied risk premium from observed transaction. The way I was calculating implied growth rate from the observed data, because the fair value measurement is from the observed data, you have to interpret the behavior of the investor. So if implied risk premium has gone significantly, examine was that the case in number of cases of March 31, 2020 valuation, maybe, and those need to be done, but sequence will act. Implicit rebuttal is the presumption that observable prices are orderly. That means auditor or any user will start with this assumption. In fact, sorry, this is the presumption, Dr. Lal. This is a presumption that observable prices are orderly. You have to dismantle this presumption based on your supportable evidence that and that should be incontrovertible. That means there cannot be any dispute that this is not a disorderly transaction. If that be the case, then you can take other than the quoted price. The sequence should be first identify principal market, or if not possible, then go for most advantageous market. After that, see the level of activity or a volume drop significantly, maybe indicating inactive market. After that, see, can it be classified orderly? What test here happened? Is that indication of forced sale? Is that some indication of distress sale? If the answer is yes, standard says little weight should be given this quoted price. And IBS also support that you have to use two or more than one methodology in that situation rather than that. I hope Amit this answered this question.
So I have another question on this basically. So I got your point that you were suggesting that in such case of scenario where the transaction price are not orderly or it's not an active market, we can use multiple methods for financial reporting, which is suggested by IBSE standards. But can we use average prices of or maybe a historical multiple or maybe trailing multiple?
You mean to say
instead of
historical? You mean
yeah,
to say historical?
yeah.
Yeah, Sami, Amit, this is a good question. I'll be answering in more detail when we go for a market multiple if we get the time. But to answer your question at this stage, this will be really, I would say, conceptually out of order because COVID-19 situation, pre-COVID and post-COVID are completely different. In some, I mean, just barring few exceptions situation, I would not rule out. Most of the cases, two conceptual point. One, fair value measurement is a specific date measurement. Remember that point. Fair value measurement is a specific date measurement. So no way you should use the average of the past. Even though you think about that, you cannot do it because the condition prevailing before, say, COVID-19 impact and after that COVID-19 impact is totally different. So you cannot combine and take an average and say something as, yes, if you take those price available in the market, do some adjustments in terms of premium or discount. There are methodology for that. That is different situation, but you can't take average. That is very clear.
Okay, so that is a very clear position under India's or maybe IFRS.
Sorry?
For financial reporting. So I think that is a very clear position under India's all
Yeah,
the
you're right.
accounting standards.
Absolutely. If it is a merger valuation, one can think of, but not for this. This is not allowed at all.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, Dr. Siroy.
Sir, so my next question is, what is the concept of known or knowable in the determination of fair value measurement, and how it can be applied in the current situation, the COVID-19 situation?
I just said earlier, fair market value is a data-specific exit price. I repeat, fair market value is a data-specific exit price. I think a lot of people are confused. Unfortunately, some standard does not discuss about fair market value. But anyway, I would focus right now on fair value. In a fair value, there is a willing buyer, there is a willing seller, but willing seller is identified. Please appreciate that. We know who's the seller. What when we say market participant is the buyer we are talking about, right? So fair market value is a data specific exit price based on the assumptions market participants would make under the current market condition. From these principles, since it is a specific date measurement, any information known or knowable should only be considered. That is the basic principles of valuation you need to consider. That means subsequent date information, means information available after measurement date should not be considered at all. The problem with the COVID-19 is that market participants' assumptions are changing so frequently that it is becoming very difficult to pinpoint that what were their assumptions. That means one day the market will suddenly 2,000 point up, another day 3,000 point up. So that is a very volatile kind of a situation. But then again, the principle remains same. So valuer need to understand what you should know, what you should not know, what you need not know. So there are three types of things. What you should know, we call as SK. What you should not know is SNK. What you need not know is a DNK. Based on that, you take a call. I give a one classical example that if you are doing a valuation, say on March 31, 2020, you can't take the price of April 1 even. April 1 price is not applicable because that was not known or knowable on that date. Yes, in some circumstances, there would be cases where that information would be available after the measurement date, but that information would be relating to that particular valuation date or measurement date, that may be considered. I give you an example, two examples to clarify this point, that what is known and knowable. And in a COVID-19 situation, there are so many information coming out. I repeat for every professional friend who are hooked with this program, you please prepare the list of various stimulus given by Government of India, list of various benefits given by Reserve Bank of India, list of various benefits given by banks in India, because India is a bank-driven economy. Nepal is a bank-driven economy. Am I right? So if the banks moves, these guys moves. What information was available or could have been known by March 31? Those information will only come. Other information will not come for the purpose of analysis. Now let's take example. If you are doing a valuation for 31st March 2020 and you are asked to do a valuation for a minority shareholder, where at the time of valuation you were given a say financial statement before December 2019 because it was a December closing statement and it was not available then. You prepare a statement because you have to do it as per standard. You have to do it in all possibilities. So you prepare a report, you give and handed it over. Now, after 31st March, before auditor signs, say December financials has come, and that financials have got a severe, material differences or changes, which you would have considered had you got those financial information of December, not that. In that situation, you are required to revise your report. This will not be something breaking the principle. Within the principle, I am referring to IAS 10. It will be covered. But now I'll give you another classical example. Reserve Bank of India on April 17 has changed NPA position on March 1. Oh God. Is that something we need to adjust? Is that something covered under the known and knowable? I don't know an accounting part because I have to take a call. I have a different opinion, but on valuation is very clear. No way, I repeat, no way this information which was, they only came later on April 17, thought about changing NPA position of lot of accounts which were classified based on outstanding position on March 1, 2020. And they have now passed an accounting entry also. So if I have to do a valuation of such companies, suppose it was classified as a NPA before March, and this information is available on April 17, this information in my understanding cannot be counted for the
So,
Hello.
your voice is breaking again.
Yes, you can make a disclosure and can't be counted. Yeah.
Rajiv,
Even still is
your
breaking,
voice
it's fine.
was breaking.
Sorry?
Your voice was breaking for last 30 odd seconds. 30,
Okay.
45 seconds.
How is that now?
It's better now, sir.
Okay. So I think just small question, and then you can take few questions if is there available with you from the audience on this topic. Then you can move forward more into the detailed part of the valuation.
Yes. So, sir, last question on this. Sir, governments and financial regulators are coming out with bazooka of aggressive policy initiatives. So, does a valuer need to consider such supports from the government and regulators?
I think I couldn't hear you properly. You were talking about
Naveen ji, Rajiv sir has answered that question. Rajiv sir, the question is basically, which you were discussing, that government is coming with lots of relaxations and relief for the companies and businesses in India. And even I was about to ask this question that if we are doing the valuation as of 31st March 2020, and the company is basically a particular sector is basically receiving relief from government, shall we consider post 31st March? Shall we consider those relief if we are carrying out valuation maybe in April?
Okay. So, fine.
Yeah, Amit, again, it is linked with the concept we discussed just now.
Yes,
if those
so
stimulus from government or maybe from Reserve Bank of India, because RBI is trying to say whatever they can do in terms of giving liquidity to the market, all possible tools they are doing, created new structure, products to address that. But remember, all of them which you want to consider. First question is, should we consider? Yes or no? Answer is yes, must be, because this is how you can treat the economy works, and there are so many players. Government is one of the player because they also enjoy tax, and Reserve Bank also has a role to play. So I have no doubt that those should not be considered. I have only point need to clarify this stage is that again you have to prepare a list. This is not a small issue this time. There are so many lists. So banks, Reserve Bank, and government or state government also. You have to list all those policy announcements which have been made and see the impact. Some cases, I'll give one example of TLTRO, that is a targeted long-term repo operations. This is a new, very nice design product by RBI. By this product, they wanted to infuse 1 lakh crore liquidity in the market for 3 years period. And first version 1 came with the 4 tranche, 25,000, 10,000. Each time it was happening, bid was much more, 3 times, 2.5 times, 4 times, 5 times was the bid. Effectively, there was a euphoria because banks were literally minting money 4.5 from it, and they were loading into the financial market for a large year so that the market is stable and market liquidity need is meted. Here is very important. Before March, suppose there are 4 tranches, 1 lakh crore announced, 3 tranches happened, 1 tranche was left. So 1 tranche was still in the domain of knowable. So you can consider that. But you cannot consider the latest round of TRO, which has come in April, which was specifically meant for SME and NBFC, 50,000 crore. First tranche will come 25,000 crore. And not surprisingly, in fact, it was expected, very few people went for this because after raising this money, there was a condition to give this money back to the NBFC and the minister. You can imagine the operational liquidity issue which these 2 sectors will face. But this information, a stress condition of these 2 sectors were there on March 31st also and today also. Even if it would have been a successful, you would not have counted it. I hope it's clarified.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Rajiv sir, I think we are falling short of time. So, we have covered the first section, which is setting the foundation. We have some questions in question and answer pop up. Shall we take them now, or you want to let's go with the flow and take them towards the end?
If you can give me 1 or 2, if I know that if I have already covered, so I won't answer, I'll answer at right place. If it is something to be answered this stage, I'll probably answer.
I think let's filter it out. Me and Amit will filter it out, and we can cover them later on. So because some of them are already answered. So let's go with the flow now.
Okay.
So let's get into the details of valuation. So, sir, the first question is, are the terms valuation uncertainties and market risks same? COVID-19 is an example of valuation uncertainties or market risk. Do you think COVID-19 infected economic conditions that requires application of more than one method, even though observable inputs are available?
Okay, fine. So you have basically raised 2 questions. I'll answer in 2 parts quickly. The first part is that valuation uncertainty and market risk are not same. The identification of risks are very important, and those risks need to be addressed either through cash flow or through discount rate, which we'll discuss later on when we go immediately. But valuation uncertainties are basically is nothing but is in the process of estimating the value as on a specific date. So this is nothing to do with the risk. The risk are some different, analysis is different. Risk is through the cash flow or through the discount rate. But the uncertainty, valuation uncertainty, I repeat, is something, a concept a valuer must understand, is related to 3 important things: a market disruption, input availability, and choice of method in the model. So if you ask me, the COVID-19 is a valuation uncertainty. If I remain in position and then the choice of method model is that COVID-19 is a market disruption. Answer is yes. So therefore, it is a valuation uncertainty. How it is to be handled, it should be require a full disclosure. IBS talks about significant assumptions should be separately and other assumptions should be separately identified. I think there's a need of the hour, even though some does not, because I think so the people should understand about this particular thing. To clarify this point, a highly quoted stock, suppose, highly liquid stock, that means there is no problem of frequency, there is no problem of volume, their quoted price, as far as value uncertainties are concerned, there are little, but the market risk, yes, it carries market risk. So I hope you understand the meaning of market risk and the valuation uncertainty. Fair value, again, one point was that, is that the right time to cover more than one method? So standard talks about, I am referring to IFRS 13 or Index 113, fair value and exit price. I repeat the word, watch carefully, regardless of whether the price is directly observable or estimated on other valuation techniques. So is a standard says that even though if it is not directly observable, no problem, or you can do a combination, is allowed there. So what is important is that valuers should understand. So again, I repeat, a pre-COVID crisis situation, approaches were different, methodology will be different, and thereafter it will be different. Yeah.
Okay. So coming to income approach, most of the management does not have the in-house capacity to do a robust projections even in normal conditions. Given this situation, what do you see the role of a valuer is there in the financial sporting events called forecasting?
May I request
Naveen ji,
Nami to throw some light on this?
yeah,
So,
sure. So, Naveen ji, this basically, I think almost all the standard are consistent on this thing, that the valuer has to provide an unbiased and independent valuation. So, there can be a variety of reasons that the projections prepared by the management is biased or sometimes inconsistent or untethered to reality due to lack of understanding of the industry or maybe economy. So in that case, valuers' roles becomes more important while projections prepared by the management. So particularly in a COVID-19 situation, the rigor required for preparation for PFI is higher due to high element of uncertainty, which we have never seen before. And the valuer should be paying a higher standard of care and evaluation for addressing these kind of issues. So I think in such situation, creating a scenario, three scenario, considering the uncertainties, the slowdown in the economy would be better to handle uncertainty in the business. And I think the valuers should also consider the near-term projections, which is most affected due to COVID-19. So there may be a business where there is no revenue in next 2-3 quarters. So I think by dealing with the projection, valuers should create a scenario that there is no revenue in period 1, phase 1, and 2-3 phases with a low growth, no growth, low growth, slow growth, and maybe a high growth going to terminal period.
okay. And now, Shweta.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, you're there. How good would be the historical financials in DCF valuation in view of COVID-19?
Historical financials may not be relevant in most of the cases, or it would require adjustments because of the impact of COVID-19. And the key reasons are expected drop in revenue because of lockdown, although impact on each sector and company would be different. And the changes in business models, disruptions in the supply chains impacting operating cost, operating margins, unusual inventory levels, distressed receivables, payables, and labor shortages, pay cuts, other employee related disputes, and most important, the breach of contracts, fixed cost, changing in fixed cost and variable cost behaviors. And the rating downgrades would require revisiting borrowing rates. The change happening around the world is material and rapid. Revenue and expenses for FY 2021 would assumably reflect significant fluctuations from the past, and would not be the normal level of operations, obviously. So yeah, further we there would be a recovery time, and hence the historical information for a few years of projections may not be in the line with the past. Yeah.
Okay. Coming back to you, Rajiv ji, what are the key factors a valuer should consider while validating the prospective financial information, PFI, especially considering COVID-19 situation? Do you think considering more scenarios in cash flows are more appropriate as compared to baking all risk into the discount rate?
I think, again, there are two parts of the questions. The first part is about what are the issues which we consider, especially in COVID-19. So I would start with first identifying losers and winners. Like there's no guess saying if it is a airline, prison.
So your voice is breaking.
Then next try to understand
Rajiv sir, your voice is breaking.
finance to understand this game, because yeah, is that
Rajiv
okay?
sir, your voice is breaking for last 1 minute. I think nobody can make out. So request you to be little slow and maybe repeat what you were saying.
Okay, I just repeat. Is that fine?
Yeah, it's better now, sir.
Okay, so what I'm saying, I would start with looking a PFI by first identifying whether that company falls under the loser category or winner category. Of course, this is based on analysis. It can't be based on my personal thinking. There is nothing personal thinking into the valuation. I may have a different thinking, but I need to back with the data. So examples of losers could be hotel, airline, tourism, so many others. Each sector has their own problem. Pharmaceutical, telecom, there are a few examples of winner. Having done that, then you see what are the CACs. I think auditors are now very much compatible with CAM, Dr. Lal. So I have introduced them one more term after economic quarantine. This is a CACs. So this is a key adverse changes. What are those adverse changes which has taken place? Then you examine about the economic mode. That means the competitive advantages. Those having high competitive advantages, strong competitive advantages, and a strong pricing power will have a different situation versus those will not be having. Few may be having a erosion of competitive advantage because of the business model changing. The most important thing I will examine, I repeat this for all valuers to note, sitting in a bank, I understand this is one of the most important in COVID-19. Note down this is a liquidity risk, especially for SME, NBFC, including startups. These guys are facing huge problem in terms of liquidity, and you have to see whether this liquidity risk is going to get converted into solvency risk. If that happens, you are finished. So be careful. Impact on operating cycle, high inventory level, high receivable period, and then pressure on payables. These would be the feature for operating cycle. From where the money will come, take call into that. Also examine delay in delivery of financial statement. I repeat, delay in delivery of financial statement can delay in availability of financing. Quite possible is a big new risk coming. Market uncertainty may lead to obtaining committed financing. Oh, so those who got committed in the past or are supposed to pay may not pay you because of the uncertainty. Disruption in supply chain going to affect your cap operating cost. See that one that is going to, there is an alternative source or what will be the structure of the cost. So you have to understand that. Then, of course, availability of debt financing, then potential covenant breach. I think Rakesh Uzaji will take care of that. I think this is a very, very important part. I think we are now coming to that part quickly to address that. Will have a serious impact in terms of your survival. About various types of customer contracts are under serious stress. Then flexibility of operation will be a huge impact. I've classified into two components, WFH and CWFH. Work from home, can't work from home, company which can function with a mix of both or only WFH would be the leader. And those we can't, CWFH will have a big problem. Volatility and dollar price, commodity price, dash for cash, government support, credit rating downgrades. One more important, forecast bias. This is different from forecast error. Forecast error is about achievability. Forecast bias is about optimistic and pessimistic situation. That needs to be addressed under COVID-19. Think about impairment and other. This will be a very important exercise. Litigation and then renewal thing part of that. So this is what would be the issues which you can cover. Yeah.
Okay. Coming to Amit and Rajiv ji both on DCF, how do you decide phases of DCF and what should be the likely length for DCF? If the management has not considered the phases of the length of PFI is not appropriate, what should the valuers do? Rajiv ji?
Is your voice not clear? Yeah.
Amit, would you like to take this?
Yes, so I think as a valuer, one has always an option to go back to the management and ask for a higher length of the projection and explicit period. And in case if they are not able to provide it based on the assumptions used by the management and economy and industry situation, the valuer can extend the length of explicit forecast period to and prepare some phases based on their understanding of the industry, business, and historical performance of the company. So Rajesh, sir, would you like to add
what
something?
Amit had said, Dr. Sirohi, this will be very sector and company specific, but my guess is first phase should be around 2 years, considering V shape, W shape, whatever U shape you say, followed by medium and long. That means 3-phase DCF, maybe 4-phase DCF could be a norm now. And multiple scenario, not one scenario is something is the answer. The length would depend upon individual company position.
Industry.
Okay. Now coming to startup valuations.
I think we'll take up this question later because there are other speakers, so you can move ahead to the next question.
Okay. So coming to Shweta, do you think there is a need for normalization of risk-free rate for estimating cost of equity?
Yeah, risk-free rate is one of the key components of the cost of equity capital, and because of extraordinary efforts of various regulators to address liquidity issue in the system, risk-free rate is currently low. In USA, it is around 0.60%, whereas in India, it is around 6.2%, sorry, as of March 31, 2020. But such low interest rates are unsustainable for long term as they result from regulator support considering the current market conditions. So there are two ways to address low risk interest. One is to normalize as followed in USA based on data available with database agency, and the other is to increase company specific risk premium as widely used in Canada. Second method is the better approach if the cost of equity is calculated directly in India, and the first method may be followed if it is calculated using USA data first and then converted into INR. So when interest rate is zero or or negative, then normalized risk-free rate is the only option. And due to significant lowered interest rates, the risk-free rate used in the discount rates may be very low, which may provide an incorrect picture of the valuation. This is because cash flows may not be appropriately adjusted to reflect the lower growth rates. If the valuer feels that the cash flows are not adjusted for the changes in the interest rate, so additional risk premium may be considered in the discount rates to ensure that lowered risk-free rates do not lead to anomalous valuations.
Okay. Let's see Mr. Oja. Oja ji, are you around?
Yes, yes, I'm there. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, you are. So, Oja ji, with my question is, what is force majeure and how it is to be treated in contractual relationships? And what are the recent judicial approaches to contractual disputes arising during the pandemic period?
Thank you, Dr. Sirohi, for hosting this, and thank you everybody for joining this session. I would welcome everyone and do hope, along with others, that we all remain safe, our business remains safe and optimal in these times. Now, your question, I think, Dr. Sirohi, I would answer the first part of the question in the beginning, and then we'll take up the judicial what is the judicial approach and how is it that force majeure is seen in the context of this COVID-19. At the very beginning, we find that this is a very wide topic to be summarized in these few minutes that we get the chance to interact with you. But we'll have the details for some other day, either in a shorter forum or at an individual kind of interaction forum. But we'll try and sum it up for everyone today. But before I begin on the subject, there are three overriding premise which I would like to set out for everyone, and please bear in mind when you move forward, when we move forward on the discussion. The first issue is that in India and also globally, there is very limited jurisprudence of how force majeure operates in a contract in the context of an epidemic or a pandemic. So we are dealing with a situation in that sense, even in the legal field, it is novel. It's developing as we speak. It's developing globally more than what's happening in India. So we do have, in fact, that forces us to get into the jurisprudence of general force majeure as to how it operates into contract, and use that to reflect on the COVID situation and try to make some meaningful deductions or conclusions. Then the second thing is that what I would say is based on the expertise and the experience that we have over decades in this field, both in the national domestic law space and also internationally, there is a definite legal basis to what I would say. I may not be able to today point out or elucidate on the details of the legal basis of premise, but you can be comforted that it has a legal basis to what I'm going to say. Now, with that premise, I think straight away, in very simple terms, What is force majeure? Now, as a word meaning, it means a superior force. It's an intervening force. It's an intervening event, one or combination of more than one, which has come in contemplation, which has arisen in an existing transaction or a contractual relationship. When you take this concept in the realm of contract, it is that supervening force which impacts an ability and the ability of one or both parties to perform the contract either in part or whole. That means this force or this event has inhibited us or impacted the contractual party from discharging its usual normal contractual obligations. So that is the framework. Now, so there's some of the broad features, of force majeure which we should bear in mind before we delve into the specifics. First of all, is that largely in the world it's a creation of contract. It's a contractual paradigm that we are dealing with, except for certain European countries where this is also finds in a codified form in their own statute or law. So at least for India and the common law countries, it's a creation of contract. The second aspect is that force majeure being so within the non-codified space, it does not have a precise technical meaning, including in Indian law. But it is indeed explained by some judicial pronouncement, some kind of case law, some precedents which are there, in the legal field. We find that there's more jurisprudence on this aspect in international law than in domestic law. Although we do have some very seminal cases even in India, which have given us some guidance. But that does not mean that force majeure will not be enforced in a contract. Force majeure will, if it is there within the contractual terms, it will be enforced within the realm of the governing law of the contract. So courts will recognize it, courts will enforce it, they will implement. But we have to keep one thing in mind, that law does not automatically apply force majeure to the principle of contract. It's not that force majeure comes in alive and becomes applicable to contract ipso facto or by itself. It is based on contractual covenants. So in that sense, contractual covenants are the bridge through which law will approach the entire paradigm of force majeure when addressing the rights and liabilities of parties. Keep one thing more in mind, as Mr. Rajiv Singh said, the principles of mitigation will also apply. That means if there are government measures, if there are certain kind of policy changes, or there's some kind of relaxation, those are things which will be taken into factor as whether these really ease or make it much more comfortable for you to perform. Now, broadly, when we approach to this subject, the first test we put is that does your contract contain a force majeure clause or not? And this is the first distinction, very real and very necessary. If your contract does have a force majeure clause, the starting position is how is it defined in the contract? Because in our experience, it's rarely that we find an unqualified definition of force majeure in a contract. It always tries to specify certain things, tries to predict certain things. So you go to your definition. That's your first step. Then you have to also assess that how does the contract allocate the risk overall between the parties? What stage of performance are you? What is the duration of the contract? What are the payment terms? How is risk allocated in the contract? So that's the second thing. Then you have to bear in mind the pre-contractual circumstances. What was the ecology in which the contract was entered? When I say that, I mean, what was the commercial reality? What was the legal framework? What was the performance paradigm in which the contract was entered? And then with that, you have to contrast it with the impending situation that you are dealing. What has happened now?
The name, address, email of the corporate debtor, registered office of the corporate debtor. Third is name of all the directors. In case of LLP, all the partners.
I do have C&As.
Five is share capital. You will get it from Arun's website. 6, 7, the same. directors will be filing, and they can appoint somebody in India to make the authorization.
Some kind of audio intervention here.
Yes, some intervention is there. Yes, please.
Yeah. I think we can limit that to good. Yeah. So yeah, I was saying that if you look at that situation which existed at the pre-contractual stage, contrasted with what you have now. So that's your beginnings space. Now, as we said, that it's an event which impacts a party, impacts in your ability to perform the contract in terms of the original bargain. Now, impact itself has 3 or 4 separate aspects. You see, you cannot leave it as subjective as it impacts me. How does it impact you? That's the next logical question. In law, we find that impact takes the shape of prevention, being hindered, or being delayed. And in the extreme situation, you are compelled to terminate the contract. So either the event has prevented you, it has hindered you, or it has delayed you from performing. These are some of the tests which are usually used. Only to say this, that establishing prevention is a very high legal onus. Either the law will ask you to explore alternate means of and methods of performance, some other way that you can mitigate the loss to the other party. So prevention is hard, but yes, it could be a reality in certain circumstances. Keep in mind one more thing, and that if you are able to establish as an impacted party having suffered the force majeure consequence, it's not necessary for you to prove that you would have been able to perform the contract had the event not intervened. That's not necessary. So the law does not require you to say that, oh, look, I was in a position to do this, I could have done it. No, it's not necessary. Now, the next aspect, Dr. Sirohi, would be that what needs to be established for claiming the force majeure. I mean, there is something like a condition precedent, you may call it, that you have to cross these bars in order to be able to tread on the path of claiming force majeure immunity. First of all, and it's a common aspect, the burden of proof is on the party claiming the impact. So the affected party has to discharge this burden of being able to show how he was impacted or she was impacted. Now, the first thing you have to show is that the force event, major event, was the primary cause of your inability to perform. There is no other external factor. This is the dominant primary cause which impacted you for performing. That means you were prevented, hindered, or delayed because of this event. Then the second aspect which law requires you to show is that your non-performance was due to circumstances beyond your control. It's not something, for a reasonable man to be able to control these facts and circumstances. And then the last step would be that no reasonable step could have been taken to avoid or mitigate the consequences of the events that have happened. That means this is an aspect of law that you are expected to act as a reasonable contracting party, take your steps. But here, in order to claim a benefit or a consequence of force majeure, you have to show that I could not have mitigated it. I could have done nothing in my reasonable means. So that's the premise from where you start. Now, what happens the next logical thing would be that if you indeed are an affected party and you claim force majeure, what are the consequences? What would flow from your assertion of this kind of a situation? First of all, law provides you that you may be excused from performing the contract, either in whole or in part. Second, you may be excused from delays in performing. So there could be extensions without liability. Or you may suspend of the contract and then, of course, claim extension of time for a finite period. Now, in the extreme circumstance, it also gives you the right to terminate the contract and get out of the whole relationship. Now, commercially, we find that when we come to termination, it also often creates a platform for parties to renegotiate the contract within the current reality. So I always find that a pre-termination step, which is useful is try and re-leverage this to renegotiate your contract. Now coming to, so that's the basic framework. We do find certain mix-up. We find that people mix up various facts, events, kind of circumstances and start claiming force majeure. So it's measure. So it's equally important to know that what all does not and cannot constitute force majeure in law. So you cannot delve into these facts and circumstances either in combination or in isolation of your claim. First of all, it's very common, negligence, willful default or malfeasance, all those aspects are not to be looked at here. Whatever are the usual and natural consequences of these external factors, which may or mean the contemplation of a reasonable man or the parties, that's also something that is not covered here. Another exception is certain circumstances, and we do find these, which are explicitly contemplated or provided in the contract. If a contract does, foresee a circumstance, provide and address it, then you cannot take the force majeure route for those facts. Then another thing, and this is a little subjective aspect, the mere fact that performance has become difficult, onerous, more expensive, or less profitable is not good enough. You cannot claim these grounds in isolation in support of your force majeure. And last, of course, this is again it does not protect you from antecedent breaches. If there are certain defaults which are existing, it does not provide you any immunity. So that's the framework in which a force majeure operates when a contract has a clause. If a contract has no clause of force majeure, then broadly we think that there are three routes available to you. Please look at your contract in totality. There are certain clauses which may not be labeled as force majeure clauses, but it can be of aid to you. See the contract in totality. If you find nothing there, then you have to delve within the doctrine of frustration of contract, that the contract stands frustrated. In law, we say that frustration of contract is a mode of discharge. So you're discharged from performing if you're able to successfully claim and establish frustration of contract. And finally, if you cannot do this, you may rely on this for the purpose of limitation of your damages. Tomorrow, if you end up in a dispute, use this as factors to limit your damages. Now, very briefly, frustration is a codified concept. Even in Indian law, we have the Contract Act, Section 56 provides for frustration. It's a narrower concept than force majeure, very difficult to establish. And one of the things there with that impossibility of performance is the test. Now, that's a very huge test to meet. So being able to show this is a little onerous. Finally, it also depends on the term and the duration of the contract as interfaced with the term and the duration of the FM event. So if it's a short-term contract, yes, your chances of claiming frustration would be better. If it's a long-term contract, then it's fairly difficult to continue and show that it was impossible to perform for this whole period. Now, with that, we sum up this force majeure, and these are some of the suggestions or some of the pointers which we can all keep in mind when we approach this situation. The first step is consider and analyze if your contract contains a force majeure clause, to the definition, what all is covered, what is not covered. Second is do explore alternate means of performing, reducing delays, minimizing the loss of the other party, those kind of things. Very important, follow contractual notification procedures. We usually find a force majeure clause does also set out a procedure. You have to notify with certain degree of details of how you are impacted to the other party. Do not default in that, otherwise the clause may not operate for you. You may have to give periodic reporting, some kind of mutual discussion, and those kind of procedures are there. Then, of course, do not rely on increased costs and those kind of things. They are not available to you. Very important, maintain contemporaneous records to support your impossibility of performance. You cannot tomorrow be sitting and trying to dig out papers or trying to create papers retrospectively. We do have contemporaneous records at the time when you are claiming. And if there is no force majeure clause, consider other options under the frustration doctrine, and you can leverage for a renegotiation. Now, coming to the second part, that part of the question, how would COVID be seen? This event be seen in the context of force majeure? Now, we can readily agree that this will depend on the contractual definition of force majeure, how you have defined it. If your definition includes terms like epidemic, pandemic, and all that, then obviously COVID-19 is covered. That's the area of lesser dispute. Now, if these terms are not used, then you'll have to see whether your list is illustrative, exhaustive, are there other kind of terms used, how can you get it? Generally, find that some kind of a phrase like circumstances beyond the control of parties, outside the control of parties, those are used in contracts. It's also our experience that when interpreting these phrases, courts are generally liberal. They do not take a strict interpretation. So I would like to believe that in view of this unprecedented nature of COVID outbreak and the actions of governments around the world, it is most likely that it will constitute force majeure event under many of the force majeure clauses. That's a reasonably safe position to take. So, but the bad news is that just because it is covered under force majeure is not necessary that you will get the immunity or the protection. You have to establish and meet the next challenge, which is the impact challenge. You have to show how this event really impacted you or disabled you from performing the contract. As we speak, we are following some of these cases in the US, and in order to contend or establish impact, there's a threefold test which is coming, which is emerging from the US jurisprudence. One is that it is an unforeseen event. It was outside the control of parties, and it has for the time being rendered performance impossible or impractical. So that's on the contractual liability. Another thing I need to highlight here is that when we all say that, look, whether COVID is force majeure and should we look at it, but you see, you have to keep in mind that COVID, the pandemic, in combination with the response of the global government in the form of an extended and a widespread lockdown, that's the force majeure. It's not the COVID. So you have to combine these two together and then say that while maybe it's debatable whether the pandemic is unprecedented, we have had events in the past where such things have happened at localized level, but I don't think it's debatable that the global lockdown for such a long period of time was ever precedented. This was never precedented. So it's always better to keep these two things together. And coming to the last part of your question, Dr. Sirohi, judicial approaches. Again, as I said, it's a developing situation. It's something that we are looking at very carefully, but some features are emerging, from India and also globally. One is that courts appear to be being generous and liberal in interpretation of contractual obligations. So there is a judicial sympathy towards the affected parties' claim, and parties have been able to show genuine difficulties in performing the contract. So as this moves in the litigation space, dispute space, and the international arbitration space, we expect a lot of more judicial thinking, a lot of more principles emerging. But still, we find that two things parties need to show even now: that this is outside the control, which is correct for COVID, and could not have been prevented or mitigated. Prevented, yes; mitigated, a little debatable. In India, we have had some cases here. We have had the Delhi High Court, which has prima facie said that the nationwide lockdown is in the nature of a force measure, and they have state execution of bank guarantees and all that. So yes, there is a positive kind of a thought there. But we do have some development from the also on the Mumbai High Court, where payment obligations were not released because of force majeure. So the party could not escape or avoid payment claiming force majeure. It may be that because the case was in the realm of essential commodities. There is one more final statement which I would like to make, that there is some Indian law to state that if your contract does have a force majeure clause, frustration may not be available to you as an option. That means live, stay, and be with your contractual provision. You cannot then claim frustration. So that's the overall thought within the limited time which I would like to share. And thank you so much, everyone, for having the patience to listen to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roja, for such a detailed view and information that you shared. Now, before we come to you, Dr. Lal, can I request Mr. Rajiv Singh? Let's take few of the questions, because we have a lot of attendees in Zoom, as well as we have people watching on YouTube. So can we take few pertinent, relevant questions? Rajiv ji, can I request you, please?
Yeah, I'll do, because even we got few questions before we even started. So I'll mix up few of them. You please extend this by another 30 minutes, though, because we'll cover these questions, right?
Right.
Because there are a lot of questions and conceptual part. Within that, what we wanted to cover, we'll be able to cover. And so questions have come.
And towards the end, we can request Dr. Lal's view on the IFRS.
Yeah, Dr. Lal, you are on. So once I'll finish, then you can come. There's no problem. Yeah. We'll examine that
Whenever
one.
you feel comfortable, you can give me a mic. No problem, sir.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Okay. So the first question is from Rahul Kumar. Which pocket sector affected in COVID-19? Residential, commercial, industrial, and why? Residential is less impacted. Commercial, anything related to the revenue, and because of the work from home kind of concept realized. And I said, remember, behavioral changes, which will be for a long-term thing, except in the consumer's behavior. So commercial will be affected more. Industrial, I said, sector-wise. So that I think was not the issue today. So I'll not go in more detail. Mr. Goel, Anil Goel is saying that, are you going to cover investments or private equity investment? Yeah, we are covering all these concepts are for private equity. I'll be just answering question for discount rate and TLOM. These two questions have come up, and Silpang Karya, you raised about market multiple. First says that, suppose if I'm using market multiple of March 31, can I consider updated revenue earning of next year into the multiple of valuation date? Now, let me give you a quick answer for this, about because I have not covered market approach because of time reason, but just few concepts so that you are clear. Public market multiples. Remember two important concepts. Public market multiples might not be entirely relevant either now or before COVID, because before COVID, as you know, it was all-time high, so they were all irrelevant. Now, as of now, also will not be relevant for various reasons. As I said, you need to do adjustments because of those shocks we have seen. So suppose you calculate a trailing multiple, that is the last 12-month data of your denominator, maybe earning, profit, whatever, and that may not be a relevant one because that is not something which is achievable. And there is a problem relating to the forward multiple also, because there is no earning forecast or flyers available. So two method under market approach, transactions method, even done for a 2 month before, will not be relevant today. If you want to use it, you have to do a lot of adjustments. It might go to level 3. Similarly, March 31st market multiple, company basis, if you use those data, you have to first make a lot of adjustments before you consider them, because they will not be reflective for two reasons for unlisted company. Goel Saab, Anil Goel Saab, please remember this. If you're using today's environment, market multiple of a listed company to unlisted company, because listed companies are more volatile, empirically proven as compared to unlisted, they remain fairly stable. Need to do those adjustments, otherwise there will be a problem. Plus, using trailing multiple will be dangerous, and there is a limitation of using forward multiple because earning data are not available. So that is the way I've answered this. There was one question about what type of discount rate, other factors like equity risk premium and company specific risk premium. So I'll answer both these questions. Two gentlemen, I'll read your name later on. Let me cover the question first. COVID-19 is a systematic risk or unsystematic risk? Can anybody write on this? Because if you understand that, the job is done. First understand whether the COVID-19 is a systematic risk or unsystematic risk. Then we'll try to see how it should be factored through the discount rate or through the cash flow, because that is how the whole idea is. If you can answer, it's fine. If you don't, then I'll answer it. COVID-19 can't be diversified. So you know the answer. If it can't be diversified, then it is a systematic risk. It is a risk which cannot be diversified. Unfortunately, you cannot have a treatment of this risk in beta. So therefore, there will be adjustments for this in the discount rate if you are trying to adjust through the discount rate. If you are not trying to do the adjust through the discount rate, you do it through the cash flow. What is the best way of understanding this? I'll give you two ideas so that you can make out. And then I'll come back to the company specific risk premium. The first idea is that the risk can be divided two ways. Risk can be divided one way. So two-way risk are macro risk, which means it can favor you or it can go adverse also, like exchange risk. The other risk is one-way risk is the risk which is something which you can diversify, and that is always going to be negative. So typically we cover whatever in company specific risk, those risks. But if it is a macro risk, not captured in beta, etc., you have to cover ideally in your cash flow. So now let's see a situation. I can classify my projections into three categories. First, management gives me projections. In fact, doesn't give me a projection. Hires me to do valuation for Ind AS 109 or IFRS 9, where they say that this is the unlisted company, minority shareholder valuation. You do it. I have only historical data available, nothing available. So there is an issue of then quality. You have to base on historical data and whatever for future information available from market you are using. In that case, you can make an adjustment for COVID-19 uncertainty premium, CUP, or you can make adjustment in company specific risk premium. I'll discuss. There are 5 methods available there. I think Amandeep, you asked me this question. 5 methods available. 4 could be quantitative. 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th can be something qualitative. So all are right now. There is no one method which is acceptable. But I repeat, forecast does not exist. Unlisted minority shareholder CUP. COVID-19 uncertainty premium require adjustment. I'll discuss about the quantification. Quality forecast is not available. Forecast available, but it is not quality. That means there is a forecast bias. So you can have a projection risk premium that is a part of your company specific risk premium. Quality forecast exists, which means you have addressed COVID-19. Auditors, valuers, please understand, if you have adjusted COVID-19 impact in the cash flow through a multiple period and multiple scenario, you are not supposed to do any adjustments in the discount rate on account of COVID. That is a double counting. Not allowed. Going to create a trouble for you. So what are those methods of quantitative? If you have money, use Duff and Fell database. If you don't have money, use total beta concept. If you still have money, use model is adjust all company specific risk in cash flow. I repeat, best way to address this, acceptable to the courts. There are a lot of challenges people are doing based on, in my understanding, 2%, 3%. So better than that, adjust all company specific risk in cash flow. No further adjustment for alpha in the discount rate. You have no basis. 5th, 6th could be the method which would be qualitative. So right now, because of paucity of time, I'm not discussing. So these were the questions from the audience. Let me take one or more questions, and then Manish Srivastava asking what is the impact on power sectors because of reduction in consumption. You have to first guess, as I said, V shape, W shape, or U shape. Based on that, you will recover, because if the industry has to recover, bar sector has to recover first. So your question is answered. Ashok Gowdy Sahab has asked a very nice question. I have done a, Amit, I think this was your question. Unfortunately, we have ignored. Valuation of land plant machinery done in Feb 2020. If people from bank are listening, what is the relevant of this? Oh, there'll be no relevance of this on March 31. You have to make adjustment because the prices then and prices on 31st March will be absolutely different. If it is residential, it may not be that substantial, but if it is commercial, huge impact. Plant machinery, I don't think there'll be much impact because that is how situation will look like. Then there is a question of DLOM. It's a very good question from Silpang Karya. I'm addressing your question about DLOM, that should we take normal DLOM which we take, or in COVID-19, what should we do? Suppose in COVID-19, you have increased your discount rate to capture that additional element of COVID, which means you have a great growth, value addition in this model. So your discount rate has to be lower. One. Second, a discount rate for DLOM developed on public best data under this extreme volatility condition will be very, very high for a unlisted company. So you have to make at least these two adjustments apart from others. Third key element would be your holding period, how long you want to keep. So that is your question. I'll ask now answer the question of Shumit Kapoor Shah. His question is that how does the valuation technique affected for manufacturing and service sector? I think Sumit ji, if you can, if you would have listened, Ojha ji, he covered that service sector will be, the contract would be the key. So examination of contract performance and which part of the industry this service provider is doing. For instance, suppose I am a service provider, say a fintech company, and I'm doing certain kind of a services I'm providing, and that industry is doing well, there's no problem. Say if the telecom I'm doing, you're better. But if the service sector providing services to a sector which is not doing well, I think you will be in a great trouble. Principles and methodology will remain same. We have covered there. In manufacturing, of course, there will be additional problem of inventory, etc. And service sector, there will be a more problem of liquidity and other issues. So one set of service sector will be doing well if it is good. If another sector of service will not be doing well, say the banking services, if you are into this business in India, you will be doing well because that is the opportunity for you to do that, right? Sam Sharma, you have an issue about what will be the impact of risk-free rate. We have already answered. Equity risk premium, typically when the risk-free rate is around 6%, inflation rate is around 5.8 something consumer price. So difference is just point something. So real return is very, very less, which effectively means that risk-free rate is very low. So you need to adjust equity risk premium. There are three models, I mean, historical and others. So whichever model you, historical, I would not say will be very appropriate at this stage. You have to use forward-looking models for capturing that. Cost of equity, what will be the impact of supply chain impact? Yeah, supply chain impact, you have to see whether you have captured in cash flow or you want to cover it through the discount rate. Because if you are covered through discount rate, be careful, you will be covering for infinity, which may not be correct. Discount rate should be on variable basis because that's not something in this scenario, your situations will be changing. First 24 months will be different, thereafter will be different accordingly. So I think fairly, Dr. Sirohi, I have answered a lot of questions. Do you have any other question, or can we call Dr. Lal and then I'll take the question thereafter?
No, I think we can request Dr. Lal's view now. You have taken up a lot of questions already. Dr. Lal,
one question on the legal side I have here, which I would like to quickly answer. It's from Mr. Vijaydeep Singh on whether you can invoke force majeure in a rent agreement.
I think I've seen that. So yeah, I've forgotten.
That clause exists in the agreement.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's a fairly simple situation. Generally, a rent agreement is the nature of a contract which will not give you the benefit of force majeure, because the property has been given to you, you're using it, and it's performed by the lessor at one point of time, except in an event where the force majeure circumstance renders the property unusable for the purpose that it was leased. If force majeure makes your property unusable for the leased purpose, you may have the option to claim force majeure. That's the simple answer.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Rizal. Now, Dr. Lal, Sushil Lal, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Dr. Shirohi. Hi, how are you?
All well, sir. So now I would like to request, sir, your views. What, in your view, can be the likely impact of COVID-19 on key items of financial statements?
Okay. For that purpose, Dr. Naveen, I would like to request you kindly show my presentation.
Yes, sir.
Accordingly, I will start. Okay.
I will, sir. I'm
yeah,
doing it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Naveen Saab. Your question is very interesting, and it is very difficult to point out anything due to not affected by the COVID-19. So, suppose my family is safe and one of the virus hit in any member of the family, the home is affected too. Similarly, we have a 41 number of Indians notified by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs and 32 number of accounting standards. So you are listening me?
Yes, sir.
Sir,
listen.
For other,
I think the screen is shared. Can
yeah,
you see the screen?
Me,
yes,
Hello?
sir.
Yes,
I'm
visible,
audible?
visible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir,
For other entities from which some are recommendatory and some are mandatory in nature. And similarly, guidance note and expert opinions are available. All these pronouncements have impacted due to COVID-19. It may be possible that some of the items have high impact, some of the items have medium impact, some of the items have low impact, even that impact vary from industry to industry. Accordingly, key financial ratio will affect it. Similarly, in financial statement, as the financial market make clear almost daily with fluctuating valuation and unusual volatility. Singh Sahab, Oja Sahab, Amit ji, Sweta ji are explained, all these things in entirely different manner, and that will give us as an auditor to give our view on the valuation side. Because without knowing the actual process of the valuation, it's very difficult for auditors to give his view. Now, sir, we have to look at the happening of industry and industry. What is happening in this time? Sir, operation has been curtailed, supply chain has been disrupted, liquidity has taken a big hit, travel and freedom of the movement are severely restricted. These developments not only separate many companies from their customer, affecting demand in the process, but they also erode customer purchasing power. Sir, you are listening me? Hello?
Yes, sir. Please continue.
So due to estimation process inherent in financial reporting, companies must consider information that becomes available after the balance sheet date, but before the issuance of their financial statement. Companies are required to disclose the nature of the event and either an estimate of the financial statement impact. For a declaration that an impact assessment cannot be made. Accordingly, depending on the time of their issuance, the financial statement of calendar year reporting companies may have included such disclosure. Dr. Naveen, in this situation, role of the company, role of the valuers, and role of the auditors has increased. The major areas are concern are all these. First of all, going concern assumption. So that's a very big issue. Where going concern assumptions, events after reporting period, financial instrument, recognition, measurement, and disclosure for all these accounting entities. Similarly, for impairment, PPE, intangible assets, goodwill, revenue, fair value, inventory, disclosure, and one more most important factor, that is impact on internal control framework. That is also going to hit the, that is also affected by the COVID-19. So now I would like to come on the balance sheet side, how balance sheet is quarantine and how balance sheet is affected due to COVID-19. Let's start from one by one. What kinds of effect will come on property, plant, and equipment? So, as per property, plant, and equipment, be as an auditor, what we need to do for that. As and when we are doing the audit for the property, plant, and equipment, at that time we have to test the impairment. For the testing of impairment, again we have to see about all these valuations and impairment testing and blah blah blah. So here the impact of property plant, the impact on property plant is medium. Why I'm saying medium? It may be high for any other industry, but as far as in overall, I have you summarize at least 50 complete situations, and I have seen the signed balance sheet of 2 or 3 big companies. They are saying, and that balance sheet is saying that property, plant, equipment is affected mediumly. What is the reason behind it? That will explain later on. Similarly, as far as capital work in progress is concerned, it is affected very low side. It affected very low side. There is only one accounting standard, that is A16, or we can say about the borrowing cost. There is a case in these situations we can't capitalize all the interest on the capital work in progress for the period of suspension. For that period, we have to hit that all the interest in P&L. Sir, hello, hello, hello.
We can listen you.
Hello.
We can listen you, sir. Please continue. Dr. Lal, please.
बोलिए बोलिए. You will speak.
Doctor, please continue. Dr. Lal, your mic is off.
Hello.
Dr. Lal, please continue.
Sir, I'm again repeating about the property, plant, and equipment, sir. At that time, there's just some problem from my side. I'm not listening and I'm not getting anything what I'm doing because the screen is going off. Sir, I'm again repeating about the property, plant, and equipment. What we need to do, why it is categorized as medium impact is there. Sir, listen properly. I would like to repeat again, sir, property, plant, and equipment. Index 10 require that useful life and residential life of PPE needs revision on normal annual basis. Due to COVID-19, PPE can remain unlisted or not unutilized for a period of time. The standards require depreciation charge even if the PPT remain idle. COVID-19 impact may have affected the expected useful life and residual life of PPE. The management may review the residual value and the useful life of an asset. If expectation differ from previous estimation to the accounts for the changes as an accounting estimate, so then we have to disclose this thing. So now we have to come for Index 6, AS16 for property, plant, and equipment. Here we have to fair value of the items items to be calculated on the revaluation model. Fair valuation of non-monetary assets or the item of PPU which the item of PP is acquired in exchange of non-monetary assets or partially an exchange of non-monetary assets. So I would like to continue in this manner. Is it feasible and is it audible for all the participants? Hello?
Yes, yes sir, we can hear you.
Sir, we can listen to you. Please go on.
Please go ahead, sir.
Hello? Hello?
Sir, please go ahead. We can listen to you, sir.
Yeah, you are listening me properly now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Perfectly. We are listening you. There is no break. Please continue.
Okay, so now we have to come on investment, trade receivable. These two areas are highly impacted due to COVID-19, sir. And similarly for deferred tax, there is a medium potential impact due to COVID-19 on deferred tax. Similarly for inventory, sir. Inventory is also very most important areas in this time. As and when we are doing valuation of inventory, then we have to take a lot of things in our mind. So as far as accounting standard is concerned, that accounting standard is saying that inventory is calculated on the basis of cost or NRV, whichever is lower. Here, at the time of calculating that cost or calculating the cost of the inventory or NRV, both are affected here. As far as cost is concerned, that is affected due to fixed overhead. In this period, as and when lockdown is started from 22nd March till the 31st March, there is a fixed overhead on the basis of normal capacity. Earlier, what we people are doing, whatever overhead is there, fixed overhead is there, that is capitalized on inventory. Here, in this period, we have to charge that overhead cost for that period as in the period cost and charge in the P&L. Due to that reason, cost of the inventory decrease here. And similarly, at the time of calculating NRV, we have to see and evaluate the selling price, because the country is moving in which direction nobody is knowing about this, because Dr. Akbar Singh Sahab, it is in V shape, it is in U shape, it is in W shape, it is in L shape. So in this time, how we can value our selling price? What should be our selling price? We have a lot of inventory in our godam, but we can't say it will be sellable in 1 month, it will be sellable next week in 1 month, it will be sellable in 1 year. So this is the major challenges. So accordingly, at the time of signing of the balance sheet, we have to take care about the inventory, because it's a very, very important item for the profit and loss account. As and when if inventory value is increased or decreased, our profit is increased or decreased. And accordingly, we have to pay some tax to the government also. So in keeping all the things in view, we have to take care about the inventory.
Dr. Sirohi?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lal, for a very detailed presentation. Now we have come towards the end. Maybe we can take a few more questions.
I have 2 questions before you can send. So can you answer those 2 questions?
Yes, sir. Please, I think we should take a few questions, and I request participants, if you further have questions, we can.
Please send it. We'll reply by mail. You said so that.
Yes, please. Please, Rajiv.
Or we'll take up another one. That's no problem. So I'll first answer the Ankit Avasti. He's asking me how is the valuation of fintech companies. You have a great future, boss, because banking sector, if you have a look into the banking sector, and I know they're sitting there, how much importance of the fintech would be, especially this COVID has given a new way of thinking of bank people, and those with the technology will be the one will survive in future. So to give you an idea, 90 lakh crores of bank credit available today. So even if say you assume last year growth was 10%, if you assume right now maybe 6 to 10%, because all government is trying to inject money. I repeat the word inject money into the various sector. So it will be roughly 9 to 10 lakh crores of economy injection will come from the banking side. And to provide those services, and how you where you are there in fintech space. I mean, you are on onboarding of customer, or you are inside the system of a bank. Accordingly, your value will change. You ask also one question about the moratorium period impact. It's not a big impact as such, because if you are a company which have taken loan, I don't think fintech companies takes loans from a bank. If you have taken loan just by 3 months, the government is saying, okay, fine. If you can't pay, there will be no problem. Your credit rating will be intact. etc., etc. So not much impact per se in valuation. Your NPA classification, if at all you are falling, you will be safe. There is one question from Mike Nikar. Nice question. He said, valuation post-COVID. Oh God. So I'm yet to find, Mike, when the post-COVID situation will happen. If it happens earlier, good for us. But yes, you're right. Conceptually, if it is a post-COVID valuation, these impacted years will not be a relevant year for the future course of valuation. There is no doubt about that. The way we are ignoring right now the past, we'll have to ignore the current as a past in the future. I hope you understood what I say. So, Dr. Sidoi, these two questions were there before me, so I've answered. Is there any other question? Hello?
Yes, so I request participants, if you have any questions, maybe you can put in the Q&A question answer part or on the chat.
If you have any question through the YouTube space, so you can send me, I'll answer. If the participants wants to listen, there's no issue.
Sir,
Sir, just if for some small part, if you can cover startup valuation, then that would be a good thing
okay,
for
fine.
this.
That is the one I left. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So, okay, fine. I'll come back to the startup. See, that one important thing you have to learn about the startup valuation is that the first issue in the past, there was a concept you must have seen in the market or must be aware. The AHC company, that is an asset-heavy company, they were considered inflexible, slow-moving kind of thing, you know, and that is why their prices were less. I'm referring to manufacturing company and asset-light model company, like a lot of startups are, will quickly scale up kind of thing, and their valuation were very fancy, leading to believe that this is the way the money to be made. I think COVID-19 has dismantled this. You need manufacturing companies, so the thought process are changing. So keeping that in mind, the second, the finance availability, because if you are doing valuation of a say a startup company, anyway it is very risky and tricky. The first thing you do is to see the balance sheet and the projection of the balance sheet. Ask hundreds questions about the availability of the fund, either through the banking channel or if they're taking some rounds, etc. Because even though there will be a committed funding, those fundings will not come because of various write-downs across the globe. So some of their commitments will fail, and because even though you have a business model, you have the customer, you may go wrong. So I would prefer at least 4 possible scenarios. A base scenario, which probably your client will give you, a slow scenario where you grow slowly more than what, because most of these startups are highly over optimistic, and which I was referring to as a projection bias placed in the projections need to be nudged, tampered, because otherwise you will be overvaluing. Then you have to go for a speed scenario, depending on the sector you are. As I answer question of Ankit Avasti, if you are a fintech company, you are enjoying this COVID-19 situation. If you are something doing in the telecom space and gaming and this, you are enjoying. But if you are in a hotel and etc., if you are doing something there, if you are OAs and etc., I think you are in a different ball altogether. Also, you should consider the scenario 0, quite likely. Remember, now average life of companies listed on top class company listed on a stock in US has come from 60 years to 20 years. I repeat the word 20 years, which effectively means most of the company may not see the day of the light, because despite government right now more focus on creating demand in rural sector, these guys would need to fund. So I only say, if you have a fund, if you have a business model, you are working for a sector which is viable, and in this COVID-19 impact, with COVID or without COVID, your valuation is intact. As far as methodology is concerned, the past multiples or market multiples which are available will not be a guide. So you have to be careful. The cash flow model and scenario based would be the appropriate. Of course, you can use other tools also, like an option valuation method, if there is a growth opportunity. I repeat, when you look for the your startup companies, believe me, in initial days, what they have got the high intangible asset, less tangible asset. So you should see that those intangible assets are adequately covered and valued. Otherwise, you're making error. So that is what I think. As far as techniques, process, and procedures, just these adjustments, a higher discount rate, maybe the need of the hour, or a more scenario with a lot of different other than optimistic scenario. So you have to be careful, because those people are the one who have a deliberate, or I would say the motivation, that is called a projection bias. So projection comes from that angle. You can't take and apply a formula. So is there any question, Paul?
No.
Rajiv ji, there is a question coming. Although it's a case specific thing, that your valuation of telecom sector in light of this Facebook and RIL deal. Would you like to comment anything on this? Or?
I think, yeah, right, is a more sector specific. So I think we there were a lot of questions about which sector will do better and which will not. I think that is not what was the objective of this.
Correct. Yeah, we should not.
But yes, I'll answer him that telecom, considering this COVID-19 situation, it is going to be there in the bright future. I think it's revived. It was in a very bad shape, so it will have then some better future, because is a change, is a long-term change, is a behavioral change I was discussing. So telecom will witness. That's the reason why Reliance Jio deal has gone like that. They are valuing the behavior changes of the customer, and they believe that all young guys who are now studying from a school on a digital platform will be their customer for long life. And look at that, the now you are hooked to phone or laptop, asked together, and then followed by the health industries, because with this you will be giving business to the hospitals also. Yeah, Sirohiji, any other question?
No, I think otherwise they are very specific sector wise or very specific.
Yeah, I think we are not covering sector per se here, because
so I think most of the conceptual analytical questions we have captured. So I think we are close to the end, almost 3 hours now. I can request my all the panelists to maybe switch on their video right now, so that we are coming to the final closing part of the seminar. To begin with, I would like to thank each one of the panelists for about 3 hours of deliberations now, and many hours of discussions, deliberations before the webinar. It's really good, and we look forward to have more of such discussions, interactions in future. I would like to place on record a special thanks to all the attendees. We had about 275 of them, including Zoom and YouTube. So 200 thing plus on Zoom, and then some 75 plus on YouTube. Some of you are...
Dr. Sirohi, this should, I believe it will be available on YouTube later on also, and we can compile. We can compile question, Ojaji, whatever we could answer today, we will answer later on.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think within the limited time we have done justice to it. You have answered many questions. Of course, there are more questions.
I didn't know that there was more question for you than to us. So I think it was so good, so people were hooked. Anyway, we'll cover it in detail. Yeah.
No, all right. You read my mind, sir. Actually, I was saying that this link will be available on YouTube. People who had some problems, or if they want to revisit, you can watch it there. So I was first of all placing thanks to all the attendees. We have even some people from other countries. So some few personal thanks I would like to place on record to CA Subodh Kumar Karn, past President ICANN, SAFA President and CAPA Board Member; CM Mahesh Goregai, past President ICANN and SAFA Board Member; CA Jagannath Upadhyay, past President ICANN and SAFA Board Members. So these three esteemed members have joined. Very special thanks to all of you, sir. I would also like to place on record a thanks to our Miss Veni Thapar, our board member, our guiding force. She is also here and joined us in this thing. we have some lessons. When you move forward, you have some lessons. Today we had some technical issues initially, the voice part, but we assure all the attendees that those things will be taken care of in the next webinar series. So with this, we close it now. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.